2021 is going to be a year of disruption, distraction, and opportunity. Did you catch that? Disruption, distraction, and opportunity. There will be more opportunity that will come your way this year than in the last 5 years combined, but you're going to need to be ready to receive it. One of the most important things that you're going to do in 2021 is get more customers. And the way you get customers is you ask for them. Developing sales boldness or sales tenacity is one of the most important traits of a quality entrepreneur. And I'm here to tell you that the game of sales has completely changed. It's become more relatable, more personable, and more effective. On today's show, we're going to roll up our sleeves. I'm going to interview one of my favorite people of all time, and we're going to talk about how you can develop sales tenacity to get paid more and have a bigger impact on the world. EdTalks Live is next. Hey, what's up, party people? My name's Ed Rush, 5-time #1 best-selling author, your host for the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. I'm here today with my friend Michael McIntyre. We're talking today about how to develop sales tenacity. And on the show, I'm going to not only ask Michael to tell his story, he grew $1 billion organization, but also give you some very specific things you can do right now to grow your brand and your positioning in the marketplace. Before I do that, let me just say, if you're on chat on YouTube, jump in on the right-hand side, tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do. If you're on Facebook, do that right below. Always hit that share button. Tell your friends about the show. And before we get into today's topic, I just want to take a side diversion to just talk for a moment about national events. Now, you know me well enough to know that when I talk about national events, I don't come at it from a hyper-partisan standpoint. And as you know, if you've been watching the news, there was a riot in the U.S. Capitol yesterday where one woman was killed. In that exact moment, the entire news media, in fact, our entire governmental structure did exactly what they've been doing for the last 4 years, which is to go into what I call kindergarten mode. Kindergarten mode is what my kids do when there's a problem. So, for example, I have a 13-year-old boy and a 12-year-old boy. Amongst my 4 children, there's 2 boys right in the middle. The moment something bad happens, my 2 boys look at the other one and say, it was his fault. And in this exact moment yesterday, the polarizing United States media immediately pointed to the other side to say it was their fault. For example, this article on Axios that says, inside the room is pro-Trump mob stormed the U.S. Capitol, or this from the Gateway Pundit that says evidence reveals some individuals at the Capitol weren't Trump supporters. So let me ask you the question. Were there far-right protesters at the Capitol yesterday? Of course. Were there far-left Antifa protesters at the Capitol? Of course there were. Were there some good people that just went there to peacefully protest at the United States Capitol? Of course there was. You see, we have a sick country, and in a sick body, the immune system doesn't fight off disease properly. And because we have a sick country, all of these radical fringes on both the right and the left begin to pop up. That's because our leaders are acting like children. And when the adults act like children, you can't imagine that the children are going to act like adults. For example, like this guy who has taken a picture of the U.S. Capitol on the left, by the way. This is a Antifa riot in June of 2019. And yesterday on the right, this is Horns guy in the U.S. Capitol. When the country's sick, the immune system no longer is able to fight this off. So let me talk to you a moment about how to think about this. In fact, let me talk to you for a moment about how to talk about this. What you should know is, as this one pundit said on Twitter, yesterday was all a distraction, so that Nicolas Cage could steal the Declaration of Independence. I'm just kidding. I thought that was hysterical. But I really thought sometimes humor is one of the best things for our national dialogue. By the way, it is important just for a moment to smile. Start with the way you think. There's a term that I use called kindergarten thinking. It's what my kids do when they point at each other. Did you know that the ills and the problems of our country are not all the other party's fault? Did you know that there actually are some good people in the Republican Party? Did you know there are actually some good people in the Democratic Party? Did you know that there are bad people in both of those parties? And you know what? There's also a whole bunch of people who don't even know what to think this morning. There are senators and congressmen and women who woke up this morning without a clue as to what to think this morning. You know why? Because they're humans. Yesterday, when the congressional vote went down and Vice President Mike Pence decided to certify the election, there was a group of conservatives who immediately called him a traitor. That's kindergarten thinking. It's one thing to say, you know what, I disagree with what the vice president did. It's another thing to say, I wish that he had done something different. But it's another thing altogether to go from 0 to 6,000 miles an hour and immediately begin to call someone a traitor. So let me look at you and say, first, you think properly. And to think properly, you have to admit at first, you don't know everything. In fact, we don't know all of the evidence. Was there, for example, voter fraud? Of course there was voter fraud. There's voter fraud in every election, all the way down to the local council man and woman. Every single election has minor bits of voter fraud. Was there massive voter fraud? Probably. Was there evidence of massive, widespread voter fraud? I'm not sure, and you don't know either. That's why we have investigators in this country. That's why we have people who look into things, and even internet sleuths like you and me trying to peel back the onion and try to find out what's happening. So first, let me just encourage you to avoid extremism on either side, because we don't know everything, at least not yet. The second thing, and this is very important, is to understand that in this country, the leadership of our country is your responsibility. It's my responsibility. We have a nation that is designed of the people, by the people, and for the people. So if you don't like your leadership, guess what? Step one is to say, it's our fault, it's our responsibility, and it's our time to do something about it. That's why for the last 4 years, I've been talking about this movement called Ed Rush for America. Now, 4 years ago, when I started this movement, I had good people on both sides look me in the eye and say, Ed, I'd love to support you, but I can't, because if I do, then Donald Trump won't win the presidency again, or Joe Biden won't win the presidency. That's kindergarten thinking. When would now be a really great time to have the courage to support something different? The answer to that is now. And I'm here to tell you that the people that I'm working with, we have a plan to make things better and to make things different. We just need you. So without any further ado, I am going to jump into chat and say hello to some of my friends. And then I'm going to introduce my friend, Michael McIntyre, and we're going to have a blast. So thank you, Gina. Good to see you as well. Wendell Buggs, back to the show. We have missed you indeed. Robert, I have a letter on my wall that you wrote to me a year ago discussing what we just discussed. And I just want to thank you, sir, for your support. You are a wonderful individual. Thank you, Diana. Good to see you as well. Hey, Barry. Good to see you. What's up, David? That's Ed for Prez. I love it. All right. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm going to do this without any fanfare. I'm going to bring out my friend, Michael McIntyre. So Michael and I met several years ago. By the way, this is a guy who built a $1 billion organization $3 billion organization. We did that last time. I was going to have you say the actual number, but I don't know if you heard the word, but that was a billion with a B. Okay, so plenty of people built $2 billion. This was $1 billion with a B, but he sold that company years ago, and now he's helping entrepreneurs like you to try to find out what they're passionate about, to pursue what they dream about, and how to totally crush it when it comes to income, impact, and lifestyle. He has events around the world, big following. I've been on his show. He's been on my show. And it's awesome to have you back, Michael McIntyre, for the third time. There's that number 3 again.
Come on, baby. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Ed. Welcome. I'm glad to be back. And you're so kind to have me. I love your audience and I love your message.
Thanks, man. Good to have you. So let's go backwards. I want you to tell. So for those of you who don't know, I did an 8-hour training yesterday while I was talking to this camera for 8 hours. So I told Michael I said, you're going to do talking today, bro. But he doesn't have, I've never seen you have an issue with that. So I'm just going to pitch it to you. Tell us the story. I mean, you told us back in April, the story of how you grew your business, but I want you to tell that story just so that everyone has a context so that when they hear you, they know you.
Yeah. So, gosh, it was crazy, man. I know when we met in Dallas, I think last March, right as the COVID was hitting, and kind of went out there and looked at some properties, and then then all of a sudden everything turned crazy in 2020. Well, it was a crazy time, but so what? I was in the Air Force. I'm a military guy. I think that's what attracted me to you, because you military. Of course, I was in the Air Force, which actually had real airplanes. But
real airplanes, but not real pilots. So if we can agree on that.
Touche. All right. So, but at any rate, I got out of the Air Force and I knew that I wanted to be in sales. My dad was in sales and I got into sales, and sales was just a natural for me. It really was. And I think coupled with a real strong work ethic, it just hit, and it was hand in glove. So I developed a insurance business, and I got really good at it. And what I did was just kind of duplicate myself. One of the biggest things people always ask is, how did you sell so much? How did you develop this agency to a $3 billion agency? And it was really, most people, in my opinion, what I've done, and especially in my coaching now, as I know you do as well, is people tend to complicate things too much. And what we did is develop a product and develop a marketing, or develop a new mousetrap, if you will, and made it really simple. And how I deemed it simple was if I could do it, if I could sell it, if I could understand it, and I could do it. And that meant marketing it to the lowest common denominator, or bringing it out to the lowest common denominator of salespeople. Because look, good salespeople, really, really good salespeople, people who are, that can they're closers, right? They have a better than a 50, 60, 70% closing ratio. These people, they're generally not interested in details. They're generally not interested in going into the minutia. What they say is, listen, just give me a presentation manual and get out of my way. And that's what we did. We made it to where it's really easy that anybody could present the product. And we took all of the difficult things away from salespeople. Because look, and I hope I offend somebody out here, salespeople are inherently lazy. They just are, because they're so good at speaking, and they're so good at communicating and getting a point across and making a sale, that they just don't want to deal with anything else. So we made it really easy for them, and we took all of the boogeyman stuff out of sales to where all they had to do is show up and perform. And that's what we did, and it worked really, really well. And the second thing we did, Ed, is we marketed to people that weren't being marketed to. Yeah, and when it's kind of like, go where the competition is not. Create that blue ocean, if you will, because there in the insurance business, in the financial estate planning business that I was in, most people, they couldn't understand why we weren't in, running leads in Beverly Hills, or down in West Palm Beach, or in, Manhattan, Upper East Side Manhattan. I said, man, that's not where I want to be. I want to be where the lawyers are not, where the CPAs are not, where the guard dogs are not, because I want to go to middle America. Because look, there's a lot more people that had a $300,000 estate than had a $30 million estate, right? And so that's how we built that business.
So you found this, it's interesting. You found this sort of like in between place. When I built a business back in 2012, we were marketing to attorneys. We knew that the big firms, 50 plus attorneys, had their own internal marketing teams. We also knew that the small firm dude making $60,000 a year couldn't afford us. So we targeted this middle group where there were maybe 5 attorneys. And nobody was talking to them. It was kind of like what you did, this middle thing. I want to ask you, You said something I thought was fascinating. I haven't heard you talk about this. You said we took away the hard part. We took away the boogeyman for salespeople. It dawns on me entrepreneurs have the same thing. There's a lot of things that get in our way from sales, but what were the things you took away? Was it the paperwork? Was it the cold calling? What was the boogeyman that you took away, or the boogeymen?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, right. The number one thing salespeople hate doing is prospecting.
Ooh.
Okay? They hate prospecting. They hate looking for that. They just want to show up. They want to, it goes back to rejection. Nobody likes rejection, right?
Yep.
Nobody, because it hurts. I mean, it just does. And so we took that away, and we spent, I don't know, $15 million, $20 million a year on leads up for them to where they would not experience any rejection. Now, I say that we still had people sometimes, you set an appointment. We had a direct mail lead. We set an appointment for our sales agent. They show up at the house, and then the person changes their mind. They slam the door in their face. That happened. But 8 times out of 10, it didn't. And they got to go in there and make a sales presentation. And that's what most salespeople just wanted is to get in there and do what they do. And generally, salespeople, they're generally performers. And if they can get in there and perform, then the rest is history.
I like that. A lot of business owners spend a lot of their time forcing their team members to do the thing that they feel like they should be doing. One of my clients here in San Diego, a guy that I literally was 7-figure client. I mean, guy paid me a lot of money. He'd spend about 1 day out of every month talking about what idiots his team members were. And it just dawns on me that maybe the thing that they didn't want to do was the thing they weren't designed to do. I like the idea of getting prospecting out of the way, because if you can just deliver leads, a salesperson can deliver back to you what you want, essentially, which is a customer with money. That's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, and like you, Ed, I'm sure you consult with a lot of people and entrepreneurs in sales and marketing, and everybody wants to create a better mousetrap. That's the ultimate goal, right? And they want to create that, and the cost per sale is so important. We had spent millions of dollars on developing leads and different marketing techniques. I remember at one time, and what happens sometimes as our success grew and we started hitting $400 or $500 million a year in sales. We had a lot of money, and sometimes the worst thing you can do is have a lot of money. And so we went out there and we thought we were really clever. I had a mouse in my pocket at the time. And so I went out there and developed a very expensive, spent $500,000 on a television commercial.
Wow.
Yeah, which completely bombed. I think my cost per lead was like $10,000. It was like, it didn't work. And so, but I did put it out there and try something different and checked it off the list. But what really helps if you can find, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, if you're running salespeople, if you have people underneath you, you've got to find that delta where the cost of the lead and the cost per sale, it kind of works. And it takes time. I mean, here's the beautiful thing. I didn't have Facebook back then. I didn't have Instagram. I had direct mail leads, and I had a call center, right, with a predictive dialer. And I had 50 people in a call center that ran 2 shifts. So I was running 100 people a day in the call center, and I was drop mailing about 600,000 pieces of mail a week. And so with that, you can weed out a lot, but you've got to watch your cost on that. So if you can find the delta where it all works, that's the key. And that's where you can grow. I had somebody ask me today, what's the difference between a millionaire that has $1 million or his business is selling $1 million a year going to $100 million a year? And it's real simple. Scalability, right? Yeah. But you've got to be willing to lose that $1 million to take it to the 100 million. And that's where 99% of the people, entrepreneurs, business owners, get they get cold feet, man. They can't do it. They can't get off that deal because they get used to that $1 million revenue. And that's why they don't do it. Now, is it a risk? Yeah, but that's how you get to 100 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you said. You said that sometimes the worst thing you can have is money. And I found over my entrepreneurial journey how you said that I thought was really brilliant, because when you have resources, you don't think through your investment decisions quite like you did when you have nothing. Like when you are just getting started, man, every single decision is managed, and everything you sign up for online, if you're not going to use it, you cancel it. I remember the one year I had a really big year. I went through my credit card statement and I looked at all these softwares that I'd signed up for the year. I wasn't even using them, but I didn't notice it because it wasn't like I was super tight. So I like what you said about that. But on the other side, see, this is where, like when I talked in the beginning about the kindergarten thinking, there's like a maturity to the kind of thinking that you just described, because on the other side, you're not going to grow unless you take some of that money and invest it. So there's a wisdom with how you do it, but there's also a boldness in the risk in being able to do it in the first place. I thought that was really, really great.
Yeah, and thank you. I think a timid salesperson has skinny kids.
Skinny kids, Zig Ziglar.
That's it. Yeah. So you got to be bold, man. You got to step out there. You got to be willing to lose. You've got to, and if you're not willing to lose, okay, then you're not willing to take the risk, and therefore you're not going to, because you cannot play with scared money. You just can't. I like going to Vegas, and if I go to Vegas, all right, here's my watermark. Here's what I'm not afraid to lose, and I have a good time. But if I go there and I'm like, oh man, I've got to make payroll with this, forget it, bro. You're not going to make it. And so you cannot play with scared money. You've got to go out there and be bold. That doesn't mean you just throw the dice out there and put it all on red 23. You seek wisdom. You seek counsel. You find it from other people and say, hey, what do you think? Like I always. You cannot always go with your gut intuition. Some of us that are Christians, we go with our Holy Spirit, which is good, but the Bible does still say seek wisdom. And so I think it's a good idea to seek wisdom. And what I usually do is I'll meet with my mastermind group and say, okay, I've got this great idea. Would you please sync it? And
Ooh,
I want to see if they can blow holes in this battleship, because if they can, I'd rather have them blow holes in my battleship or my ego right now instead of blowing holes in my bank account.
No question. I like that. You take the ideas that people give you. It's interesting. I was joking last week. I said, I would trust science if science didn't keep changing its mind all the time. And the idea there was that. It's just, there's something new every day about what I'm supposed to believe. And all of a sudden now I have to believe it because science has told me that. But interestingly, what you just said about business is the same as science. A great scientist, the moment they come up with a new theory, they say, let's try to disprove this. And they try every way possible to prove they're not right. That's what a scientist in integrity tries to do. That's not, by the way, the kind of scientist that works for a pharmaceutical company. That's a real scientist. So your idea as an entrepreneur, what you said was, now I give it to my friends and I say, try to sync it. This is the importance of having people around you who like, and trust. And I love this because if your idea stinks, you're going to find out eventually. The market's going to tell you.
Oh yeah.
But you might as well find out now. I think that's great. Like, get it over with now. Tell me that I'm wrong so that I can find out what's right.
That's right. And it's a lot cheaper, to get your ego damaged than your bank account, right?
That's good. You should put that on your Instagram page. I follow you. It's a lot cheaper to get your ego damaged than your bank account. Michael McIntyre. Michael McIntyre special right there, baby.
Hey, you know what I like about you, Ed?
I'm willing to sync your ideas. I don't know what.
Everything. I like everything.
So you know what? You and I have that in common. So
come on, baby. I love it. But it's true though, man. Listen, look, we're all out there, generally people who are watching you, who follow me, they're entrepreneurs. They want to do better. They want to increase their ability in sales and which is great. Money is good. Right. And, people always ask me, say, hey man, are you making good money? I said, listen, bro, all money's good. Whether I walk down the street and I pick up a 25 cents that was sitting on the ground, that's good money because I can spend it, right? And so all money is good. But what you do with that money and how you invest that money and how you multiply that money is really important. I just finished reading this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. Okay.
Yeah, really good book.
But I mean, it's hard to read, bro. It's like King James the First meets rich man, poor dad, right? It's like, bro, it's the second time I read it, and but it's got some really strong principles in there, right? And so pay yourself first. That's so important, And as entrepreneurs, and I've been guilty of this too, I'm plowing money back into my business constantly, right? just like you do. I mean, right now we're fixing to do a 1-day event, which you're helping me with, and how much am I going to spend on this? And so I got to put money into that. I got to put money. I got to put a lot of money into that before it pays back anything. But on the same token, okay, so let's say I bring in $100,000 this month. I should be putting $10,000 of that somewhere else. Right.
Yep.
But we look at it because as entrepreneurs, we say, well, if I take that 10 grand, I can turn it into 50,000, which may or may not be true. But what you want to do is always, as the book says, fatten thy purse. Right. I love their language. It's cray. But it's so true, is to pay yourself first. And I think as entrepreneurs, if we do that, because look, there will be rainy days. There's going to be. There's just no doubt about it. So, and I know you teach on that constantly, Ed. And I think, I've seen some of your stuff online, which is amazing. Your team, the way you do your team, your whole intro, bro, I just want you to know, I am social envy of you. True. You guys have I know you got a team of about 60 people in the background there that are just, working their hearts out, just making all this happen. You look so good on this, Ed.
I like the perception that there's 60 people back there. My team lead, Delisa, who's watching and taking show notes right now, is probably laughing about, she's 59 of them, by the way. So I want to go back to this pay yourself first principle. But before I do that, let me just say, welcome to everybody who just joined us. My name is Ed Rush. I'm here with my good friend. And I mean that. Sometimes when you're on a show with somebody, people say that's a good friend. They just met him yesterday. This is my good friend. And this is a guy who knows what he's talking about. We had a great first meeting several years ago at his house in Dallas, which is no joke, by the way. And it's coffee, which is also no joke. He drinks this Turkish chicory thing, right? Isn't it like high octane?
Yeah. It's like,
he said, look, I know you drink strong coffee, but he said this as he's handing me this cup. He goes, I know you drink strong coffee, but I'm just going to give you this and just say, this is the strongest coffee. So just be careful. Okay. And he was right. It's really good. All right. So I want to say hello to some of you who just joined us as well. Gina says, hello, Air Force, proud Air Force brat here. What's up, Giovanni? Good to see you. Greetings from Washington. Awesome to see you as well. May God bless you. David said Zetz has got to be ready to take a smack in the face at least 5 times a day. He also said coffee is closers, which if you have any kind of desire to sell anything, you need to know Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, coffee is for closers. After the show, if you don't know what that means, go to YouTube, type in coffee is for closers. It'll be a good 5 minutes for you. Just don't do it now. All right. So you said entrepreneurs pay themselves first. Love that principle. So when I first started out in business, because I needed to learn this, I literally every single day in the morning, first thing in the morning, went to my bank account. I saw what was deposited there the day before. I immediately took 10% of that, put it into a separate account, and I took 10% of it and put it into another separate account. One was a savings account. The other one was a giving account. 10%, 10%. Yep. I don't do that as strictly as I did then, but I was trying to train myself. Now, essentially what I do is there is literally an automatic debit that comes out of my bank account every month, twice, automatically, that I don't touch. It literally goes into an account that just sort of is over here that I don't really think about, okay, because it's there.
Good.
What do you do, or what do you teach entrepreneurs to do in terms of just that principle is really important, but you have to actually train yourself to do that.
Yeah, it's a discipline, and it's like anything else. It becomes a habit. It's kind of like giving or tithing or whatever you're doing. And look, I became a believer like 11 and a half, 12 years ago, and I didn't understand anything about that. And so I read a book on A Blessed Life by Robert Morris, changed my life. And so I just started doing it, and first fruits. And I think, it's easier to do. And one of the things that I talk to young entrepreneurs about, I know you do too, is they get wrapped around the axle about debt, and, look, I'm not a big Dave Ramsey fan. That's right. I said it. Okay. I just don't want to walk around with my lunch money. I'm not a third grader in an envelope, or going, to pay my, my Range Rover, lease payment down there with an envelope full of, $900 worth of cash. I just don't get that. Okay. And so it's just not me. And so, and I know,
Range Rover.
I know some people do that, but I'm not into that. Because look, I don't want to belittle that. And I know some people get into debt way over their head. They need some basic 101 kick in the pants. I get it. what I coach my people on is debt can be a good fulcrum. Listen, right now, money is really cheap right now. Okay. If you can go out and borrow money for under 3% or at, less than, 3.5%, I would load the barrel. I really would, because it's cheap, and it's going to be cheap for probably another year, maybe a year and a half, depends on what goes on in the economy. But I think money is cheap. Money is a commodity. It has no etiquette. Okay. It's a commodity. And you need to take the emotion out of that and look at it as a fulcrum, because if you can get money and buy into real estate, or buy, you want to pay your house down or whatever it is, if you're paying that, if you're paying, 14 to 18% on your Visa card, pay it off at 3% money. Now, here's the other thing too, is I always tell people, look, it's okay to go into debt, but try to go, if you can, in business, not because you want to go to Vegas for the weekend. That's idiocy, right? So if you want to go in debt for your business, have your business plan, measure twice, cut once, but go out there, and if you can, don't borrow money against your house, like a home equity line of credit. If you're going to borrow money, if you have to borrow money, and I would rather have you borrow money on your Visa card than from friends and family. And your Visa card is the number one thing, is unsecured debt. All right. And so you can always work that out without hurting anybody's feelings. But when you borrow money from your friends and family, it can really hurt feelings. And I just encourage entrepreneurs not to do that.
Yeah. I mean, this approach to debt is super interesting. If you look at some of the most successful and wealthy people in the world, almost all of them leverage the growth of their enterprise using smart debt. Okay. A lot of people make fun of the president because he borrowed. Everybody who has a building that goes up 3 miles into the sky borrowed money to build the building. Okay.
Absolutely.
So just so that's a normal part of business. Now, the Dave Ramsey stuff, I mean, I was part of a Bible study in my church, like everybody was in a Bible study for church and the Dave Ramsey stuff is good for like learning the basics. If you're trying to learn how to ride a bike, you start with training wheels, and that's okay. But like, if like you're 15 years old riding around with training wheels, it looks weird. Okay. And that's what Michael was saying. Like, if you're walking to buy your Range Rover, pay for your Range Rover with an envelope that you saved with money, maybe it's time to move into a different way of thinking about how money goes. And by the way, there is a program. This is a side note. There's a program that the federal government has available right now. It's called EIDL. I think it's something disaster loan. You can get up to $150,000 worth of a loan at 3% interest or less. Okay. I'm not an economic advisor. I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. What I am saying is that you can almost definitely take that 3% loan and find a way to make more money than 3% on it. And there's some restrictions on how you do that. And I'm not giving you legal advice, and I'm not saying to go put it on red 25. Okay. But what I'm telling you is there are resources that are available to small business owners right now. And money is very inexpensive. As Michael said. Now, money's very expensive if you take it and waste it, okay? But if you use it wisely to grow your enterprise and your business, maybe you just want to put another $1,000 a month into online advertising or something like that, or maybe to grow a team so that you can grow your brand. And you've been wanting to do that for a while, and now you're going to be able to do it smartly. So I thought that was really, really smart. Anyway, I appreciate that. So so let's go to some sales stuff. I want you talked earlier about taking away the boogeyman. I should do this one more time just because we got to talking. Let me just say, my name is Ed Rush. I'm here with my friend Michael McIntyre. We're on a show called EdTalks Live. I air the show every week, Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. To do that, you're going to click the button right down here on the right-hand side that says subscribe. There's a little bell next to that. Click that as well. What it just does is tells you when I go live. I usually go live twice a week, plus put at least one video on YouTube every other week or so, and it just tells you when those come up. And I'd love to have you as a subscriber and a friend. All right. I want to say hello to Diana Lovejoy, who said, I release regret over posts in the past. I release worry over debts in the future. I focus on the present moment. I love it. She said, not post lost in the past. I think that's brilliant the way you're thinking about that. Everything that came before is only training. That's the way I look at it. I went through boot camp. Everything that came before was just training you. It's just training. Okay. So if it was good or bad, or you made bad decisions, a good friend of mine is the manager of the California Angels. He won a World Series as the manager of the Cubs. His name's Joe Madden. he tells his players, you can win hard for 30 minutes and you can lose hard for 30 minutes, but you only have 30 minutes after each game to win or lose hard. And if you've made mistakes in the past with money, now's a great time to lose hard for that for about 30 minutes and then move on. All right, dude, let's talk about some sales stuff. So how do you develop tenacity as a sales? This is the show title, by the way. How to develop sales tenacity. How do you develop? I mean, you trained thousands of salespeople at this point. Like, how do you develop boldness sometimes where there isn't boldness?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things that we always did is we did a lot of training in mock sales calls. And, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I know it's kind of old school, but I think it works. And there's a reason why it's old school, because it has worked in the past. Just like if you're going to do a rehearsal, if you're going to do a play or a movie or acting, you do a rehearsal, right? And I think it's real important to get into the rehearsals of the different deals and the different objections. I think one of the biggest problems with salespeople is that when they get an objection, they crumble. And, maybe when they first start out, they're really excited about the product. It's a great product. It's going to solve all the problems. It's going to make them, the client's going to be better looking. It's going to be richer. They're going to run faster, jump higher, all these things. And then the client says, nah, I'm going to think about it. And that salesperson, gets discouraged. Look, what I taught my salespeople is that until you get a no, you're just biding time. All right. And so once you get a no, now it's time you go to work. Beforehand is just a warm up. And always expect that they're going to give you a no. And the other thing too is what I taught them is that if somebody gives them a rejection, okay, not just a no, but a reason why they're not going to buy from you today or take your product or services today, that's a sale. Okay.
Yeah.
And because if they say, well, it's just too expensive, Michael, or, I've got to consult with my hairdresser. I talk to my hairdresser about everything that I do.
I ask my cat usually.
Yes. Right. Or, I got to see what, my horoscope says for the day, whatever their objection is. First of all, just agree with it. I think I talked about this last time in the 5-point close. It's really good.
Yeah.
But what if they give you that objection? Just thank God you got an objection. Now you've got a sale, because now it's easy to turn that objection into a transaction. Yep. And the key, I think, one of in the tenacity is you got to find people who are hungry. When I would run ads and recruit people, I wanted people that had a burning desire to make a deep 6-figure income. And then I would say, call Mr. Cadillac. Okay. Because I wanted people, and this is back when a Cadillac was something. Nowadays, I'd probably run, call Mr. Lamborghini or Mr. Ferrari, right? Because I want that salesperson, that saleswoman, that salesman to have a desire to get to that 6 or 7 figure, that's especially a deep 6-figure income. And the other thing too is what I would also do, Ed, and I think this is real important for your audience to know, is when you're interviewing people, find people that has had huge failure and or tragedy in their life. I hope this doesn't sound bad, but if somebody told me that they were a recovering alcoholic or a recovering narcotic abuser, I would hire every one of them. Yeah. And they were the best because they've been through the fire, man, and they walked through the fire. And, obviously if they're right, just getting sober and they don't even have 1 year under their belt, that's a different deal. But because they've seen tragedy. Because listen, in sales, in business, in entrepreneurship, if you've lived a life of Riley, if you live with Ozzie and Harriet, if you never experienced any kind of tragedy or anything like death or bankruptcy or alcohol or drug abuse or anything, divorce, then in sales, man, you're not going to make it because you're going to get hammered weekly with some kind of objection or some kind of obstacle in your way. And I want people, to look at it like, and look, that stuff happened yesterday in the Capitol was horrible. Right. But man, I've had stuff happen if what I loved is last night is how they reconvened this morning and they came back because these men and women have been through stuff in their life. Generally by the time they get to the Congress or Senate, they've seen a movie or two, especially the ex-military, so they deal with you've got to be able to deal with this stuff. And that to me, that's called tenacity.
This is pretty high level stuff, and I want to just anchor in on this concept that you just talked about in terms of the person that you're looking for. First of all, when Michael says objection, an objection is nothing more than somebody asking you a question. Okay, so they might say, I don't know if this is going to work for me, or I have to sleep on it, or let me go talk to my spouse or my cat or whatever. I have had salespeople. There was a guy that I used to work with. I don't know. He had some like, dad issues or whatever it was, but he literally used to get so upset when people would ask a question. It was almost like they were questioning him, can I really believe you? And he used to turn, he'd do it every time. And it just cracked me up. He would do this thing where he would go, well, look, it's not going to make one bit of difference to my bank account if you do this or not, but it's going to make a big difference to yours. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not going to make a difference to your bank account. You're trying to sell him something. Like, it was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. Anyway, you don't get upset, but I like this idea of who you're looking for. And I will tell you that over my course of business, the most successful team members that I've found have fallen into a couple different categories. Number one, if they grew up in a family business, they were really good. Like, for example, my mom was an entrepreneur. She had 5 businesses while I was growing up.
Wow.
I knew what it was like to show up on the sales floor and like try to get somebody to buy some shoes, okay, or buy a T-shirt or whatever. If somebody grew up on a farm, they're usually going to be an awesome team member for you. Somebody who just experienced a big life change, divorce, a spouse just passed away or something like that. Usually they're like really hungry and aware of the world that they're in. If you got somebody who like paid their way through college selling Cutco knives, you hire that person because they had to roll up their sleeves and get it done. This is another one of the reasons why it is brain dead stupid to say, let's pay everybody's college debt off, because you want people who are going to roll up their sleeves and get it done in the real world, not to be treated like little children. Okay. So I love this idea of who you're looking for. You're looking for DNA that's been through the fire a little bit. So, because when they come out of it, they're more seasoned and experienced and able to run through those waves that naturally come in the life of a business,
It's so true, Ed, and you're spot on, and you're right with looking at people who grew up on a farm or entrepreneurship. Because look, you have peaks and valleys in entrepreneurship, right? And one of the things that was blessed for me is my wife. We got married. I was 24 years old, and her father was an entrepreneur, and so she was used to feast or famine. She understood the roller coaster of an entrepreneur. Sometimes you're flying private, and sometimes you're on the Greyhound, right? And so, she totally understood that aspect, which helped me also. And so, I think choosing your spouse.
You got married when you were 24, dude.
Yeah,
and she's been with you through all this.
Yeah, 35 years, bro.
Did you get some sort of like award? Yeah,
it's called
you're gonna have for that.
Keeping my pie whole. It's called keeping my whole pie in one intact, because we didn't ever get divorced. And look, we had some rough patches, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody does, right? But I mean, think about that. 34 and there's a lot of life. That's a lot of life, man.
Yeah,
that's
baby.
A lot of stories. You're a totally different person than you were 34 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I look back at my life and I see, especially before I gave my life to Jesus, but I look back at my life and I was so, in some ways I was very arrogant, and I'm embarrassed of some of those times, but it's just youth. I mean, the old, youth is wasted on the young is so true. I mean, it really is. But I know that, but I also remember, being, coming out of the military like you, and I loved I'm writing a new book, and I was writing about my military, what benefits I got from the military, and they were amazing, and I would never trade those. And I think, and I saw that as I went into the military. When I went in, I was 17, and I come out, I was 21, and the difference in that was 180-degree difference. And I think that that's a big change. But then even in my 20s, I changed a lot from where I am now, of course, and just the way I look at the world. I think when you're so young, you think there's the time is you can't get things fast enough, because some reason you think there's a timer that's going to go off. Yeah. Not true, So, but anyways, I just think is knowing who you are in business, and understanding that you're going to have some pitfalls. And and it's, I've seen the inside of a courtroom, and I don't like going back. They don't redecorate, and so, I don't really care about seeing it again. And plus legal fees are horrendous, and so, but it's a part of business. And like I'm mentoring and coaching a young company. These guys just started 8 months ago, a social media company, and they had their first threat of a lawsuit, man. And they like blinked out, they blacked out for about 2 days, and I said, man, people can threaten a lawsuit. You can file a lawsuit anywhere, don't worry about that. Well, do I got to respond? You've got time. So they just don't know. And so, me going through that, and that's why, like, you have people that, you've been through the fire, and that's why you coach people so well. And that's how we do it. And so, seeking that wisdom so important in business, and people who've been there. I always tell people, look, it's really smart and it's very good to learn from your mistakes, but you're a genius when you
say that last. Your microphone cut off. So say the whole line again.
Learning from your mistakes is wisdom. Okay. Yeah. Learning from your own mistakes is wisdom. Learning from other people's mistakes is genius.
I like that. I'm glad I had you say that again. By the way, Gina Longo said, I worked my way through grad school as a Hooters waitress and a chem lab assistant, which couldn't be two differing, completely different job descriptions there. But yeah, I mean, like, that's not an easy job. Working tables is not. I remember I worked as like a short order cook. I chopped up the potatoes and tomatoes and stuff in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, brought up the drinks and everything from the cellar. And there was this woman who was a waitress who was working at this, it was like a little breakfast place. And it was a summer job. So she was 6 months pregnant when I got there. She was 9 months pregnant when I left. And she just worked from 6 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock at night, or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And she would go and bring, dudes would sit up at the counter and she would go bring them 6 cups of coffee, and then they would leave a quarter, and you don't know how to treat people unless you served in that environment. Because let me tell you, man, nowadays I put like $10 or $20 on the breakfast table after I'm done eating with a $5 meal at breakfast, because you understand what people go through. So
that's right.
All these moments in your life in business, like Michael talked about lawsuits or bankruptcy, or like a team member betrays you, that's training. That's just training. Okay. How you deal with that circumstance is important. And if you just look at it as, I'm just getting better today. I am just getting better today. I will tell you, the first time I got a letter from the IRS, 2012, man, that they were going to audit my return, I about lost my mind. Well, about 4 years later, I realized, you know what? They're going to send more letters. They're just going to keep sending letters. And it actually it's okay. It's okay. Mm-hmm. And then what happened was, now you get a letter and you're like, whatever. I'll deal with that in a minute. It's not that big of a deal. It really is, because you get trained.
That's right.
So good stuff, man. Hey, I'm going to open up for Q&A. Throw your questions in the chat if you got any questions for Michael. We got about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to pitch it to you. I'm going to pitch to you, Michael, for some last thoughts first. And then if we have any questions, we'll take that, and then we'll begin to wrap it up.
Sounds good.
What do you got? This is an open-ended question. You can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah. So look, I think our time, 2020 was crazy, right? I mean, it really was. But I think we learned from 2020, and I think going forward in 2021 is going to be really a new beginning. And I would just encourage everybody to forget about 2020 and just take your lessons learned and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's training. It was all training.
It was training. That's really good. I love that, Ed. That's good.
And this next 4 years is going to be that too. I know some people who are terrified about the next 4 years. I know some people who are very excited about the next 4 years. All I can simply tell you is, I've made a lot of money when things were good, and I've made a lot of money when things were bad. I've helped a lot of people when things were good. I've helped a lot of people when things were bad. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning and there's uncertainty, it just means that you're going to get to more certainty by the end of the day. So smile. So if things are good, smile. If things are bad, smile. And all I can tell you is, I read a lot of history. So I'm reading right now about the 1500s and 1600s in England. Okay. And look, this is when like kings and queens were being assassinated on a pretty regular basis. Okay. So if you think things are crazy now, you say thank you. You thank God for at least we have a constitution for at least the time being. Okay. We have a constitution. Real quick. Can you give David Zetz, the five. We'll do this. This is how we'll wrap up today's show because this is very, very good. Can you do a quick version of the 5-step close?
Yeah, absolutely, David. Thanks for asking. So the first thing you do is when you get an objection, you agree with the objection. So number one, agree with the objection, whatever it is, no matter how bizarro it is, because that keeps you in the game. Because you can go ahead. You don't want to get into a fight with them because you might win the battle, but you're going to lose the war. So number one, always agree with their objection. Number two, overcome their objection. And how you overcome that objection is real simple. If you're a salesperson, no matter what they say, this is way too expensive, Michael. Yes, I understand. It's a lot of money, but the money is not your problem. It's the solution to your problem. Number three, give a strong selling point. Okay. And if you're in sales, you should have hundreds of strong selling points. Number four, create a sense of urgency. NOW, now. Say now a lot, okay? Say now a lot. Imagine, use the word imagine and put them in a story of needing to do something now. Sense of urgency. Number five, ask for the order. And number five is the big one because a lot of salespeople forget to ask for the order. And it's real simple. You can do it with alternate close. You can do it, Would you like to use your middle initial? What's your middle initial? Or here's the ink pen here. And I know this is kind of cheesy, but here, would you okay this, Mr. Johnson? And then I drop the ink pen and instinctively they pick it up. And if they don't sign it right away, I take the ink pen back and then I go through my 5-point close again.
So, this is great. This is great. This is great. So you drop it. So they pick it up. I love it.
99 times out of 100, they pick it up.
I actually don't even know what to say at that point. By the way, the ask. I started saying this yesterday. This is one of my new things. You haven't asked for the sale unless you've asked 7 times. Okay. So if you ask once and then you're like, oh, I already asked them. That's not, didn't ask. You have to log. It doesn't have to be 7 in a row. Like in that minute, I'm saying like ask again via text, ask again via email, ask again in person, shoot them another text and say, hey, have you thought through this? Do you want to jump on the phone tomorrow? Until you've asked 7 times, you haven't asked once. So
that's really good.
That was good. Thank you. By the way, you're talking, David Zetz is a sales dog. Okay. This guy took a business from nothing 12 months ago, nothing into a 6-figure business in 12 months. And he's on his way to about $500,000 right now. So this dude,
go David, go. Good job, bro. For
the sale. All right. So that is our show for today. All right. Here's the deal. This is your 3rd time. Okay. So I've only had now 2 guests past 3. But I'm going to ask you to come back. We're going to do this again, dude, because every time there's something new, drop the pen. Come on. So, Michael McIntyre, you are the man, sir. Thanks for joining me on the show,
man. You are,
man.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you very much. This was EdTalks Live. Subscribe. The button's right on the right-hand side. Don't forget, this is the year of opportunity, but you're going to have to take advantage of it when it sits in front of you, okay? So we'll be back on Tuesday. I've got some great guests coming up this month. Huge guests. An Olympic boxer, some other folks that are going to blow your mind, former NBA basketball player. This is going to be awesome month. We'll talk to you soon. EdTalks Live is out.